The wagon wheel cracked with a sound like a gunshot, and Priscilla Reed knew with cold certainty that she and the two children were going to die in this God-forsaken Wyoming snowstorm. She gripped the reins tighter, her fingers already numb despite the worn leather gloves, as the wagon lurched sideways. The horses whinnied in distress, their breath forming great clouds of vapor in the frigid air. Beside her, 7-year-old Emma huddled under a threadbare blanket, her lips already turning blue. In the back, 5-year-old Thomas had stopped crying an hour ago, which frightened Priscilla more than his earlier wails. "Hold on, sweet girl," Priscilla said, forcing steadiness into her voice though her heart hammered against her ribs. The wagon tilted dangerously as the broken wheel dragged through the deepening snow. She pulled hard on the reins, bringing the horses to a shuddering stop before the whole contraption overturned. The wind howled around them like a living thing, angry and relentless. Priscilla could barely see 10 feet ahead through the swirling white. She had been foolish to leave Oro Blanco when the sky had looked threatening that morning, but the telegram had been urgent. Her sister needed her in Cheyenne, and Priscilla had convinced herself they could make it to the way station before any real weather hit. She had been catastrophically wrong. "Mama Priscilla, I'm cold," Emma whimpered. The girl was not Priscilla's daughter by blood, but by circumstance. When fever had taken Emma and Thomas's mother last spring and their father had died in a mining accident the winter before, Priscilla had taken them in without hesitation. At 24, she had never imagined becoming a mother to 2 children, but love did not ask permission. "I know, darling. Let me check the wheel and then we will figure out what to do." Priscilla climbed down from the wagon seat, and the wind immediately tried to knock her over. Snow had already accumulated past her ankles, and the temperature was dropping fast. The sun, what little of it had been visible, was sinking toward the horizon. She made her way to the broken wheel and felt her stomach drop. The wooden rim had split completely, and 2 spokes had shattered. There was no fixing this, not here, not in this storm. She looked around desperately, but there was nothing but endless white in every direction. They were miles from anywhere, the road already disappearing under the snow. Priscilla closed her eyes for a moment, fighting panic. She had survived her parents' deaths, survived poverty, survived the loneliness of frontier life. She had to survive this. The children depended on her. She was climbing back onto the wagon when she saw it, just a darker shadow in the swirling snow. A rider, hunched against the wind, moving slowly but steadily along what must be the road. Hope flared in her chest, painful and desperate. "Hello," she screamed, waving her arms. "Please help us." The rider's head came up and the horse changed direction, plowing through the drifts toward them. As he drew closer, Priscilla could make out more details. He was a large man, broad-shouldered, wearing a heavy coat and a wide-brimmed hat pulled low. A bandana covered the lower half of his face against the cold. He pulled up beside the wagon, his dark eyes taking in the broken wheel, the shivering woman, and the bundled shapes of the children. When he pulled down the bandana, Priscilla saw a weathered face, perhaps 30 years old, with a dark beard and a scar along his jawline. "Madam," he said, his voice deep and rough, "you folks are in serious trouble out here." "The wheel broke," Priscilla said, hating how her voice shook. "We were trying to reach the way station." The cowboy shook his head. "Way station is another 15 miles, and this storm is getting worse. You would not make it even if the wagon was sound." He looked at the darkening sky, then back at her. His eyes were surprisingly kind. "My home is yours tonight. It is not far, maybe 2 miles south of here. I have a cabin, a good fire, food. You and the little ones will freeze if you stay out here." Priscilla knew she should be cautious. A strange man, alone in the wilderness, could mean danger of a different kind. But Emma was shaking so hard her teeth chattered, and Thomas had not moved or spoken in too long. The choice between possible danger and certain death was not really a choice at all. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you so much, but the horses and wagon—" "Unhitch the horses. They can follow. The wagon will have to stay. I will come back for it when the storm passes." He dismounted and moved to help before she could respond, his gloved hands working quickly at the harness. "I am Samuel Webster, by the way. Most folks call me Sam. Priscilla Reed. The children are Emma and Thomas." She hurried to the back of the wagon to get Thomas, gathering the boy in her arms. He was too light, too quiet. "Thomas, sweetness, wake up. We are going somewhere warm." The boy's eyelids fluttered. "Cold, Mama Priscilla." "I know, baby. It will be better soon." Samuel had both horses free and tied to his own mount's saddle. He turned to them, assessing the situation quickly. "You ride with the boy, I will take the girl. We need to move fast." He lifted Emma as if she weighed nothing, settling her in front of him on his horse. Then he helped Priscilla mount one of the wagon horses, passing Thomas up to her. The boy curled against her chest, and she wrapped the blanket around both of them as best she could. "Stay close," Samuel said. "The landmarks are hard to see in this weather, but I know the way." They set off into the storm, and Priscilla had never been so cold in her life. The wind cut through her clothes like knives, and snow pelted her face until she could barely keep her eyes open. She focused on holding Thomas, on keeping him warm, on following the dark shape of Samuel's horse ahead of her. It felt like hours, though it could not have been more than 30 minutes before Samuel called out, "There, just ahead." Through the snow, Priscilla could just make out the shape of a cabin, solid and real and blessedly close. A small barn stood beside it, and Samuel headed for that first, getting the horses under shelter. Priscilla slid down clumsily, her legs stiff from cold, and Samuel was there immediately, taking Thomas from her arms. "Get the girl. I will take the boy inside and get the fire going." Priscilla helped Emma down, and together they stumbled through the snow to the cabin door. Samuel had already gone inside, and warm light spilled out invitingly. They practically fell through the door, and Priscilla pushed it shut against the howling wind. The cabin was small but well built, with a large stone fireplace where Samuel was already coaxing flames from the banked coals. He had laid Thomas on a bed in the corner, covering him with thick blankets. The cabin was one large room, simply furnished but clean and solid. A table with 2 chairs, a small kitchen area, a wood stove, shelves with supplies, and the bed where Thomas now lay. A ladder led to what must be a sleeping loft above. "Get the girl out of those wet clothes," Samuel said, not looking up from the fire. "There are dry things in the chest there. They will be too big, but better than freezing. I will see to the boy." Priscilla moved automatically, helping Emma out of her soaked coat and dress. The girl's skin was alarmingly pale and cold to the touch. Priscilla found a flannel shirt and wool socks in the chest, along with a thick sweater. She dressed Emma quickly, rubbing her arms and legs to restore circulation. "Bring her near the fire," Samuel said. He had Thomas stripped down and wrapped in a dry blanket, holding the boy close to the growing flames. "Not too close, but she needs the warmth." Priscilla brought Emma over, settling beside Samuel on the floor. The fire was already making a difference, heat beginning to fill the small space. She looked at Thomas, his little face so pale against the dark blanket. "Is he going to be all right?" she asked quietly. Samuel felt the boy's forehead, his fingers gentle. "He is cold, but I have seen worse. The fever is what we need to watch for. When someone gets this cold, sometimes the body reacts badly as it warms up. We will watch him through the night." "And Emma?" Samuel glanced at the little girl, who was already looking more alert, her cheeks beginning to flush with color. She is stronger, see, already better. But you, he turned to look at Priscilla, you need to change too, you are soaked through. Priscilla looked down and realized he was right. Her dress was wet to the knees and her shawl was stiff with ice. She was shaking, though whether from cold or the aftermath of fear, she could not say. I will turn my back, Samuel said. Change quickly. If you get sick, you cannot care for them. He was right, though Priscilla felt her cheeks heat with embarrassment. But this was life or death, not a parlor in Boston. She moved to the chest and found more clothes, changing as quickly as her numb fingers allowed. The dry flannel felt like heaven against her skin. I am decent, she said, and Samuel turned back around. He looked at her for a moment, something unreadable in his dark eyes, then nodded. Sit here with them. I need to tend the horses and make sure they are settled. I will be back shortly. He pulled his coat back on and went out into the storm, and Priscilla was alone with the children and the blessed warmth of the fire. She pulled both children close, Emma on one side and Thomas on the other. Slowly, gradually, they all began to thaw. Samuel returned after what must have been 20 minutes, covered in snow but moving with calm efficiency. He shed his coat and hat, revealing dark hair that curled slightly at his collar. He went to the stove and began preparing something, and soon the smell of coffee filled the cabin. There is stew from last night, he said. Not fancy, but it is hot and filling. The children should eat if they can. You are very kind, Priscilla said. I do not know what would have happened to us if you had not come along. Samuel's jaw tightened. Nothing good. This storm is bad, one of the worst I have seen. You are lucky your wagon broke when it did. Another mile, and I might not have spotted you. He brought over tin cups of coffee and bowls of stew, and Priscilla tried to get the children to eat. Emma managed a few bites, but Thomas was still too out of it. Priscilla coaxed him to drink some broth at least, and Samuel watched with quiet approval. You are good with them, he said. They are not yours by blood, you said. No, their mother was my friend. When she died, there was no one else. Priscilla smoothed Thomas's hair back from his forehead. I love them as if they were mine. That is what matters. Samuel's voice was soft. Blood does not make a family. Love does. Something in his tone made Priscilla look up at him. In the firelight, his face seemed younger, more vulnerable. She wondered what his story was, what had brought him to this isolated cabin in the Wyoming wilderness. As if reading her thoughts, Samuel said, I have been here 3 years. Worked as a ranch hand before that, but I wanted my own place. Saved every penny and bought this land. It is not much, but it is mine. It is wonderful, Priscilla said honestly. You have made a good home here. Samuel smiled, a real smile that transformed his weathered face. It is lonely sometimes, but it is honest work, and the land is beautiful when it is not trying to kill you. Despite everything, Priscilla laughed. The sound startled her. Hours ago she had been certain they would die, and now here she was, warm and safe, laughing with a stranger who had saved their lives. The night deepened, and the storm raged outside, but inside the cabin it was warm and secure. Samuel gave Priscilla the bed for herself and the children, insisting he would be fine in the loft. They settled the children together. Emma curled protectively around Thomas, both of them finally sleeping peacefully. Priscilla stood by the fire, staring into the flames. She was exhausted but too keyed up to sleep yet. Samuel came to stand beside her, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He offered her one. You should rest, he said. Tomorrow may be difficult. If the storm does not let up, we will be here another day at least. I do not mind, Priscilla said, surprising herself with the honesty. This is the safest I have felt in a long time. Samuel looked at her, his dark eyes searching her face. What were you running from? No one travels in weather like this without a reason. Not running from, running to. My sister sent a telegram. She is ill and needs help. I thought I could make it to Cheyenne before the storm hit. Priscilla shook her head. I was foolish. I risked the children's lives because I was worried about my sister. You were trying to help someone you love. That is not foolish. Samuel's voice was gentle. But your sister will understand if you are delayed. She would want you and the children safe. I hope so. Priscilla sipped her coffee, feeling the warmth spread through her. What about you? Do you have family? Samuel's face closed off slightly. Had a brother. He died in the war. My parents passed when I was young. Never married, never had children. It is just me and the land. That must be lonely, Priscilla said softly. It is what I chose. Samuel stared into the fire. After the war, after everything I saw, I wanted peace and quiet. I got what I wanted. There was something in his voice, a deep sadness that made Priscilla's heart ache. She understood loss, understood the way grief could hollow you out. But she had the children, had a reason to keep going. What did Samuel have, alone in this cabin? Nothing but memories and empty rooms. Peace is good, she said. But so is companionship. One does not have to exclude the other. Samuel looked at her then, really looked at her, and Priscilla felt something shift in the air between them. It was not uncomfortable, but it was charged with a new awareness. She was suddenly conscious of how close they were standing, of the way the firelight played across his features, of the strength in his hands as he held his coffee cup. Perhaps, he said quietly. I have not thought much about it in a while. They stood in comfortable silence for a few more minutes, then Priscilla yawned despite herself. Samuel noticed immediately. Go on, get some rest. I will keep the fire going and watch over things. You need sleep too, Priscilla protested. I will rest later. I am used to keeping odd hours. Samuel took her empty cup. Go on now. The children might wake and need you. Priscilla nodded and went to the bed, slipping in beside the children. Emma murmured in her sleep and curled closer. Priscilla pulled the blankets up and closed her eyes, and despite everything, she felt safe. The last thing she saw before sleep claimed her was Samuel, standing by the fire, a silent guardian against the storm. She woke once in the night to find him sitting in a chair near the bed, his head bowed in sleep. The fire still burned steadily, and snow continued to fall outside the small window. Priscilla watched him for a moment, this stranger who had become their savior, and felt something warm unfold in her chest. Then sleep pulled her back under. Morning came gray and cold. The storm had not abated, and when Priscilla looked out the window, she could see nothing but white. Drifts had piled up against the cabin walls, and the wind still howled like a living thing. Samuel was already up, making breakfast at the stove. The smell of bacon and coffee filled the cabin, and Priscilla's stomach reminded her that she had barely eaten the day before. Good morning, Samuel said, glancing over his shoulder. How are the children? Priscilla checked them both. Emma was awake, her eyes bright and clear. Thomas was still sleeping, but his color was better, and when she touched his forehead, it was warm but not fevered. They are well, I think. Thomas is much better. Good. That is very good. Samuel smiled, and Priscilla felt that warmth again, that inexplicable pull toward this quiet, kind man. Emma sat up, looking around the cabin with wide eyes. Where are we? We are safe, sweetness, Priscilla said. This is Mr. Webster's home. He rescued us from the storm yesterday. Emma looked at Samuel with solemn curiosity. You saved us. I helped, Samuel said. Your mother did the hard part, keeping you both safe until I found you. She is not our real mother, Emma said matter-of-factly. Our real mother died, but we love Mama Priscilla just the same. Of course you do, Samuel said gently, and she loves you. That is what matters. He brought over plates of food, and they ate sitting near the fire. Thomas woke up halfway through breakfast, groggy but hungry, which Samuel said was a good sign. The boy ate 2 helpings of eggs and bacon, and color continued to return to his cheeks. Outside, the storm showed no signs of stopping. Samuel checked on the horses and came back shaking his head. "We are stuck here for today at least, maybe longer. The drifts are too deep to travel safely and the temperature is still dropping." "I am sorry to impose on you like this," Priscilla said. Samuel waved off her apology. "It is no imposition. Actually, it is nice to have company. The cabin feels more like a home with people in it." As the day wore on, Priscilla found herself settling into an unexpected domesticity. She helped Samuel with chores, learning the rhythms of his household. She discovered he had a small collection of books on a shelf, including several volumes of poetry and a worn copy of Shakespeare's plays. "You read?" she asked, surprised. Samuel looked almost embarrassed. "My mother taught me. She was educated from back east. She always said learning was the one thing no one could take from you." She was right. Priscilla pulled out a volume of poems. "Would you mind if I read to the children? They love stories." "Please do. I would like to hear it too if you do not mind." So Priscilla read aloud while Samuel worked at mending a harness, and the children played with carved wooden animals Samuel brought down from the loft. His voice was quiet as he said he had made them for his brother's children, back before the war, back before everything had fallen apart. Now they sat unused in the loft until today. The afternoon passed peacefully. Thomas and Emma seemed to have recovered fully from their ordeal, and they filled the cabin with laughter and chatter. Priscilla watched Samuel watching them, and she saw something soft and wistful in his expression. That evening, after the children were asleep again, Priscilla and Samuel sat by the fire once more. The storm outside seemed to have intensified, but the cabin remained a warm haven against the cold. "Thank you," Priscilla said. "Not just for saving us, but for being so kind to the children. They have been through so much loss. It is good for them to see kindness in the world." "They are good children," Samuel said. "You have done well with them. I try. Sometimes I wonder if I am enough, if one person can really replace 2 parents." "You are enough," Samuel said firmly. "Anyone can see how much you love them. That is what they need most." Priscilla felt tears prick her eyes. She was tired, emotionally and physically exhausted from the fear and the close call with death. "I was so scared yesterday. I thought we were going to die, and all I could think was that they were so young. They deserved better than freezing to death in the snow because I made a foolish decision." "Hey," Samuel reached out and gently touched her hand. "You did not make a foolish decision. You were trying to help your sister. You could not have known the storm would be this bad, and you did not give up. You kept them safe as long as you could, and that is what matters." His hand was warm and calloused, and Priscilla found herself holding on. "You are a good man, Samuel Webster." "Sam," he said softly. "Please call me Sam." "Sam," she repeated and smiled. "I am Priscilla, but my friends call me Prissy." "Prissy," Sam said, trying it out. "It suits you." They sat there, hands still touching, and Priscilla felt something shift between them again. There was an understanding, a connection that went beyond gratitude or circumstance. She barely knew this man, yet she felt safer with him than she had with anyone in years. "Tell me about your sister," Sam said, and so Priscilla talked. She told him about growing up in Boston, about how she and her sister had been close despite the 6-year age gap. She told him about coming west after her parents died, looking for a fresh start. She told him about Oro Blanco, the small mining town where she had made a life for herself as a seamstress, taking in Emma and Thomas when tragedy struck their family. In turn, Sam told her about his childhood on a small farm in Missouri, about his brother who had been his best friend, about the war that had taken so much from him. He spoke quietly of the things he had seen, the friends he had lost, the way peace had felt more like emptiness when he finally came home to find his brother dead and his farm sold off. "That is when I came west," he said. "Figured I could not feel more alone out here than I did surrounded by people who did not understand. At least here, the loneliness is honest." "I understand," Priscilla said. "Sometimes it is easier to be alone than to be lonely in a crowd." They talked long into the night, sharing stories and memories, and Priscilla found herself drawn to this quiet, damaged man who had built himself a life out of determination and solitude. She saw the loneliness in him, but also the strength, the kindness, the gentle soul beneath the weathered exterior. When she finally went to bed, she lay awake for a long time, listening to the storm and thinking about Sam. She told herself it was just gratitude, just the intensity of their situation creating false feelings. But deep down, she knew it was more than that. The next morning dawned clear and cold. The storm had finally blown itself out, leaving behind a world transformed by snow. Drifts reached the cabin windows and everything sparkled in the weak winter sunlight. Sam went out early to check on the horses and dig out the barn door. When he came back in, his cheeks were red from the cold, but he was smiling. "The snow is deep, but the sky is clear. We can probably get you back to town in a day or two once I dig out a path and check on your wagon." Priscilla felt a strange pang at the thought of leaving. "Of course, I have imposed long enough." Sam looked at her quickly. "It has not been an imposition. I meant what I said. I have enjoyed the company." "So have I," Priscilla admitted. The day was spent in preparations for eventual departure. Sam dug paths through the snow while Priscilla tidied the cabin and made meals. The children played in the snow, making snow angels and having snowball fights, their laughter ringing clear in the cold air. Watching them, Priscilla felt a bittersweet ache. This brief interlude had been strangely perfect, a pocket of warmth and safety in the midst of harsh reality. She did not want it to end. That afternoon, Sam returned from checking on the wagon with bad news. The storm destroyed it. The weight of the snow collapsed the frame. "It is not salvageable." Priscilla sat down heavily. "Oh, that is everything we owned, all our clothes, our belongings." "I am sorry," Sam said quietly. "But Prissy, things can be replaced. You and the children cannot. Focus on that." He was right, but it was still overwhelming. She had so little to begin with, and now even that was gone. That evening, as they sat by the fire again, Sam said, "What will you do now?" "About your sister, I mean, and getting back to Oro Blanco." "I do not know," Priscilla admitted. "I have a little money saved, but not enough to buy passage for all three of us to Cheyenne and replace what we lost. And I need to work. The children need to eat." Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I have a proposal. Hear me out before you answer." Priscilla looked at him, curious and a little nervous. "Stay here," Sam said. "Not forever, not unless you want to, but stay through the winter. It is only December now. By spring, you will have had time to save more money and the travel will be easier. You can work, help me around the homestead. I will pay you fair wages and you and the children will have a safe place to stay." "Sam, that is too generous." "It is selfish," Sam said honestly. "I have been alone here for 3 years, and these past few days have shown me what I have been missing. I do not want to go back to the emptiness. And you need help. It makes sense." Priscilla's heart was racing. Stay here with Sam for months. It was dangerous, not physically but emotionally. She was already drawn to him more than was wise. But what choice did she have? She had no wagon, no belongings, 2 children to care for, and winter had barely begun. Sam was offering a lifeline. What would people say, she asked. An unmarried woman living with an unmarried man. We are miles from town. No one needs to know the details. As far as anyone is concerned, you are my hired help here with your children." Sam leaned forward. "Prissy, I am not asking for anything improper. You and the children would have the bed, I would stay in the loft. I just want the company and to help you get back on your feet." Priscilla believed him. She could see the honesty in his eyes, the earnest hope that she would say yes. "All right," she said softly. "We will stay through winter, and thank you, Sam, for everything." Sam's smile was like sunrise, warm and brilliant. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me." They worked out the details. Sam would ride into Oro Blanco in a few days, once the roads were clear enough, and collect Priscilla's things from her small room above the seamstress shop. He would explain the situation and settle her accounts. Priscilla would write letters to her sister and her few friends, explaining her delay. The children were delighted when told they would be staying longer. Emma had already become attached to Sam, following him around and chattering endlessly. Thomas was quieter, but he had started smiling more and he slept better than he had in months. The days fell into a comfortable rhythm. Priscilla cooked and cleaned, mended clothes, and helped with the lighter chores. Sam tended the horses, cut firewood, and did the heavy work. The children played and helped where they could, and the cabin was filled with life and warmth. Priscilla found herself watching Sam more than she should. She noticed the way he moved, economical and graceful despite his size. She noticed how gentle he was with the children, never impatient, always willing to answer questions or fix a broken toy. She noticed the way he looked at her sometimes, when he thought she was not paying attention, a soft longing in his eyes. 2 weeks after their arrival, Sam rode into Oro Blanco. He returned the next day with Priscilla's trunk and several boxes of supplies. He also brought news. "Your landlady was worried sick. I told her you were safe and working for me through winter. She was not entirely happy about the arrangement, but she understood the necessity." Sam set down the trunk. "I also sent a telegram to your sister, explaining you would come in spring. She telegraphed back that she is doing better and not to worry." Priscilla felt relief wash through her. "Thank you, Sam. That must have cost a fortune in telegraph fees." "It was worth it for your peace of mind." Sam handed her a letter. "This came for you." It was from her sister, full of love and reassurances. Priscilla read it with tears in her eyes, grateful that her sister was recovering, grateful to be alive to read it. Christmas came, and Priscilla made it special despite their limited resources. She baked cookies with molasses and spices from Sam's stores. Sam cut down a small pine tree and they decorated it with paper ornaments the children made. On Christmas morning, there were simple gifts. Sam had carved new animals for the children, a horse for Thomas and a rabbit for Emma. He gave Priscilla a beautiful wooden box he had made, with her initials carved into the lid. "For keeping things safe," he said shyly. "I know you lost so much in the wagon." Priscilla had knitted Sam a scarf and mittens from yarn she had found in her trunk. "To keep you warm," she said, and their eyes met and held. The gifts were simple, but they meant more than anything money could buy. That night after the children were asleep, Sam and Priscilla sat by the fire, closer than usual. "This was the best Christmas I have had in years," Sam said softly. "Thank you for being here." "Thank you for giving us a home," Priscilla replied. "Even if it is just for a little while, it means everything." "It does not have to be just a little while," Sam said, then looked away quickly, as if he had not meant to say that out loud. Priscilla's heart skipped. "Sam." He turned back to her, and in his eyes she saw everything she had been feeling reflected back at her. Hope, longing, fear, and something deeper. "I am falling in love with you, Prissy," Sam said, his voice rough with emotion. "I know it is too soon. I know it is not what you signed on for, but I cannot help it. These weeks with you, with the children, it has been like coming alive again. I do not want you to leave in spring. I want you to stay forever." Priscilla could barely breathe. "Sam, I feel the same way. I have been trying not to, telling myself it is just gratitude or proximity, but it is more than that. You are kind and good, and you make me feel safe in a way I never have before." "Then stay," Sam said, reaching for her hands. "Not as my hired help, as my wife. Marry me, Prissy. Let me be a father to Emma and Thomas. Let us be a real family." Tears streamed down Priscilla's face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Sam, I will marry you." Sam pulled her close, and their first kiss was gentle and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, both were smiling through tears. "I love you," Priscilla said. "I love you too," Sam replied. "I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret this." They told the children the next morning. Emma squealed with delight and threw herself at Sam, hugging him tightly. Thomas smiled, a real, genuine smile, and said, "Does that mean we can stay here always?" "If you want to," Sam said, kneeling down to the boy's level. "I would be honored to be your father if you will have me." "I will," Thomas said solemnly, and Sam gathered both children into his arms. Priscilla watched, her heart so full she thought it might burst. After so much loss and hardship, she had found love and family in the most unexpected place. They were married in Oro Blanco in January, with the local preacher officiating and a handful of townspeople as witnesses. Priscilla wore a dress she had made herself from fabric Sam bought, deep blue wool that brought out her eyes. Sam wore his best shirt and trousers, his hair neatly trimmed and his beard groomed. Emma and Thomas stood up with them, solemn and proud. The wedding was simple but perfect. When Sam kissed his bride, the small congregation applauded and Emma giggled. They celebrated with a meal at the town's only restaurant, then rode back to the cabin as the sun set, painting the snow-covered landscape in shades of pink and gold. That night, after the children were asleep in the loft, which Sam had expanded and made into a proper bedroom for them, Sam carried Priscilla across the threshold of their bedroom. He had spent weeks building a small addition to the cabin, a real bedroom with a door and a window, so they could have privacy. "Mrs. Webster," he said, setting her down gently. "Mr. Webster," she replied, smiling up at him. Their wedding night was tender and sweet, full of whispered promises and gentle discoveries. Priscilla had been nervous, but Sam was patient and loving, and by the time dawn crept through the window, she felt as if she had known him all her life. The rest of winter passed in a blur of happiness. They settled into married life easily, working together to run the homestead. Sam taught Priscilla to ride and shoot, skills she had never learned in Boston. Priscilla taught Sam her recipes and her sewing techniques, and together they made plans for the future. "I want to expand the ranch," Sam said one evening. "Get more cattle, maybe some sheep. Build a bigger barn, make this a real working ranch." "I want a garden in spring," Priscilla said. "A big one with vegetables and flowers, and maybe chickens." "Chickens," Sam said, grinning. "I can do chickens." They talked about the future, about the life they would build. Sam wanted to adopt Emma and Thomas legally, make them truly his. Priscilla wanted more children eventually, brothers and sisters for Emma and Thomas. "A whole houseful," Sam said, pulling her close. "This cabin that was so empty will be bursting with life." Spring came slowly, melting the snow and revealing the land beneath. Sam had been right, it was beautiful country. Rolling hills, stands of pine and aspen, a creek running through the property. Priscilla fell in love with it, with the wide open spaces and the endless sky. She planted her garden, and Sam built a chicken coop. They acquired 6 hens and a rooster, and Emma delighted in collecting the eggs each morning. Thomas helped Sam with the horses, learning to care for the animals and ride. In March, Priscilla realized her monthly courses had not come. She waited another week, then told Sam her suspicions. His face lit up with joy. "A baby, truly, I think so. It is early yet, but yes, I believe so." Sam picked her up and spun her around, laughing. "A baby, Prissy, this is wonderful." The children were equally excited when told. Emma wanted a sister, and Thomas wanted a brother, and they spent hours debating names and planning how they would help with the new baby. Priscilla's pregnancy was easy and uneventful. She felt well, just tired and a bit queasy in the mornings. Sam was attentive and protective, always making sure she did not overwork herself. In May, they made the trip to Cheyenne so Priscilla could finally see her sister. The reunion was tearful and joyful. Priscilla's sister, Patricia, was indeed recovered and was thrilled to meet Sam and the children. She approved wholeheartedly of the marriage and made Priscilla promise to visit regularly. "You are happy," Patricia said, watching Priscilla with Sam. "I can see it in your eyes. He is a good man." "He is the best man," Priscilla agreed. "I love him more than I thought possible." They returned to the ranch, and summer unfolded in golden days and warm nights. The garden flourished, and Priscilla spent her days tending it and preserving food for winter. Sam worked from dawn to dusk, improving the ranch, building and planning. By the time fall arrived, they had doubled their cattle herd and added a small flock of sheep. The adoption papers for Emma and Thomas came through in September. They were now legally Emma and Thomas Webster, and the joy on the children's faces when told was something Priscilla would treasure forever. "We are a real family now," Emma said. "We were always a real family," Sam corrected gently. "But now it is official." Priscilla went into labor on a cool October evening. Sam sent Thomas riding to fetch the midwife from Oro Blanco while he stayed with Priscilla. Emma held her hand, solemn and brave, as Priscilla breathed through the contractions. The midwife arrived in time, and after several hours of hard labor, Priscilla delivered a healthy baby boy. He came into the world wailing, strong and vigorous, and when Sam held his son for the first time, tears streamed down his face. "He is perfect," Sam whispered. "Absolutely perfect. Thank you, Prissy. Thank you for this gift." They named him William, after Sam's brother, with the middle name James, after Priscilla's father. Little William was adored from the moment he arrived. Emma and Thomas were devoted older siblings, always wanting to help with the baby. The first winter with William was exhausting but wonderful. The cabin rang with his cries and his coos, and Sam proved to be a natural father, getting up in the night to walk the baby when he was fussy, changing diapers without complaint, and singing lullabies in his deep, rumbling voice. Priscilla watched her husband with their son and felt her love for him deepen even further. He was everything she had never dared to hope for, kind and strong and devoted. The years passed in a blur of happiness and hard work. The ranch grew and prospered. Sam hired hands to help with the cattle and sheep, and the small cabin was expanded again and again until it was a proper ranch house, with multiple bedrooms and a real parlor. Priscilla gave birth to 2 more children, a girl named Rose 2 years after William, and another boy named Daniel 3 years after that. The house was indeed bursting with life, just as Sam had predicted. Emma grew into a beautiful young woman, bright and capable. She married at 20, a young rancher from a neighboring property, and Priscilla cried at her wedding, remembering the scared little girl she had been when they first met. Thomas became Sam's right hand on the ranch, learning everything Sam could teach him about running a successful operation. He was quieter than his sister, but just as smart, and by the time he was 21, he was managing half the ranch on his own. William, Rose, and Daniel grew up wild and free, children of the land, as comfortable on horseback as on foot. They were bright and curious and filled with love. Just like their parents, on their 10th wedding anniversary, Sam and Priscilla stood on the porch of their ranch house, watching the sun set over their land. Their children were inside, laughing and arguing and filling the house with noise. The ranch spread out before them, prosperous and thriving. "You ever regret it?" Sam asked, his arm around Priscilla's waist. "That day in the snow, coming with a stranger instead of taking your chances on the road?" Priscilla looked up at her husband, at the man who had saved her life in more ways than one. His hair was grayer now, his face more lined, but his eyes were still kind, still full of love when he looked at her. "Not for a single moment," she said. "You gave me everything, Sam. A home, a family, a love I never dreamed existed. That day in the snow was not the end of my story. It was the beginning." Sam kissed her, slow and sweet. "Mine too. I was just existing before you came. You gave me a reason to live again." They stood together as the stars came out, and Priscilla thought about how far they had come. From a broken wagon and a desperate moment in the snow to this, a life full of love and purpose and joy. Inside, baby Daniel started crying, and Rose was calling for her mother, and Thomas was arguing with William about something. Sam and Priscilla looked at each other and laughed. "Our beautiful chaos," Priscilla said. "The best kind of chaos," Sam agreed. They went inside together, to their children and their home, to the life they had built from nothing but hope and love and determination. The snow had tried to take everything from them that day 10 years ago, but instead it had given them each other, and that had made all the difference. Years continued to pass, each one bringing new joys and challenges. Emma had 3 children of her own, making Sam and Priscilla grandparents. Thomas married a schoolteacher from Oro Blanco, a bright, spirited woman named Catherine, and they had 2 boys who were the image of their father. William grew into a young man with his father's strength and his mother's kindness. He talked about going to college back east, studying agriculture so he could bring new methods to the ranch. Sam and Priscilla encouraged him, proud of his ambition. Rose was 14 now, all long legs and wild curls, with a stubborn streak a mile wide and a heart of gold. She loved the horses best, and Sam had already promised her she could start her own breeding program when she was older. Daniel, at 11, was the family comedian, always making jokes and finding the humor in any situation. He kept them all laughing, even through the hard times, and there were hard times because that was the nature of life. Years when the cattle prices dropped, when drought threatened the crops, when illness swept through the valley. But they weathered it all together, Sam and Priscilla, partners in every sense of the word. On their 20th anniversary, the whole family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. Emma came with her husband and children. Thomas and Catherine brought their boys. The house was full to bursting, just as Sam had once imagined. After dinner, Sam stood and raised his glass. "I want to make a toast," he said, his voice still strong despite the gray in his hair and beard. 20 years ago, I married the most remarkable woman I have ever known. She was brave enough to trust a stranger in a storm, wise enough to see the good in a lonely cowboy, and strong enough to build a life out of nothing. Prissy, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. Here is to 20 more years and 20 after that, and forever if we are lucky enough." Priscilla stood and kissed him, not caring that their children groaned and Daniel made gagging sounds. "I love you, Sam Webster. Then, now, and always." The party went late into the night with music and dancing and laughter. Priscilla stood on the porch at one point, taking a moment to breathe, and Emma came to stand beside her. You and Father are happy, Emma said. It was not a question. Very happy, Priscilla confirmed. Are you? With Robert and the children, I am, Emma said, smiling. You taught me what a good marriage looks like. I am grateful for that. Your father taught me, Priscilla said. I was just lucky enough to find him. Emma hugged her. You saved me and Thomas, Mama. That day in the snow and every day after. I do not say it enough, but thank you for everything. Priscilla held her daughter, this girl who was not her daughter by blood but was hers in every way that mattered, and felt tears sting her eyes. You and your brother saved me too. You gave me a reason to keep fighting, to keep hoping. We saved each other. More years passed. William did go to college, and when he came back, he brought new ideas and new energy to the ranch. Thomas and Catherine had a daughter finally, and Rose was absolutely thrilled to have a niece. Daniel decided he wanted to be a veterinarian and began studying with the local doctor. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. Sam hired more hands, built more buildings, expanded into breeding horses as well as cattle. The Webster Ranch became known throughout Wyoming as one of the best-run operations in the territory. But despite all the success, Sam never forgot where it all started. Every year on the anniversary of the day he found Priscilla and the children in the snow, he would saddle up his horse and ride out to the spot where the wagon had broken down. Priscilla went with him, and they would stand there together, remembering. We could have died out here, Priscilla said one year, looking at the landscape that seemed so benign now under the summer sun. But you did not, Sam said, pulling her close. You survived. We found each other, and look at what we built. I was so scared that day, Priscilla admitted. More scared than I had ever been, but you came and everything changed. I was supposed to be heading into town for supplies, Sam said. I almost went the day before, but something made me wait. If I had gone when I planned, I never would have found you. Fate, Priscilla said softly. Love, Sam corrected. It was always going to be you, Prissy. Somehow, someway, we were always going to find each other. On their 25th anniversary, the family threw them a huge party. Half the county showed up, it seemed, friends and neighbors and business associates. There was a band and dancing, tables laden with food and toasts that went on for hours. Sam and Priscilla danced together under the stars, and Priscilla rested her head on his shoulder, marveling at how lucky she was. "What are you thinking?" Sam asked, his voice rumbling under her ear. "That I am the luckiest woman alive," Priscilla said. "That I would live through that day 1,000 times over if it meant finding you at the end." "I am the lucky one," Sam said. "You gave me a life worth living, Prissy. You gave me everything." They danced until the musicians packed up and the last guests went home. And then they walked hand in hand to their bedroom, the one Sam had built all those years ago so they could have privacy. They made love with the ease and familiarity of long practice, but also with the passion and tenderness that had never faded. Afterward, lying in Sam's arms, Priscilla said, "I want to go back to that place, the place where the wagon broke down. I want to put up a marker." "A marker?" Sam asked, stroking her hair, "to remember, not just for us but for the children and grandchildren, so they know where our story began, so they know that even the worst moments can lead to the best things." "That is a beautiful idea," Sam said. "We will do it together." So they did. Sam carved a beautiful wooden marker with their names and the date and a simple inscription. Here, in the snow and darkness, love found a way. They placed it at the spot where the wagon had stood and gathered their whole family there for a small ceremony. Sam told the story again, how he had almost missed them in the storm, how Priscilla had been so brave, how the children had survived against all odds. "This spot changed all our lives," Sam said, looking around at his children and grandchildren. "Remember it." Remember that even when things seem darkest, there is always hope. There is always love if you are brave enough to reach for it. Emma and Thomas both cried, remembering that day from a child's perspective, how cold and scared they had been. Their own children listened with wide eyes, imagining the adventure and the danger. William put his arm around his father's shoulders. "You are a good man, Pa. You saw people in need and you helped, no questions asked. That is the example you have set for all of us." Sam looked at his eldest son, so strong and capable now, and felt pride swell in his chest. "Your mother is the hero of this story. She kept her family safe, and then she was brave enough to say yes when I asked her to stay. That took real courage." "You both are heroes," Rose said, always the romantic. "You saved each other." And that was the truth of it, Priscilla thought. She and Sam had saved each other. They had built a life, a family, a legacy. They had turned a moment of desperation into a lifetime of love. The years continued their march. Sam and Priscilla grew older, their hair gray, their faces lined with the years of hard work and laughter. But they were still partners, still best friends, still as in love as they had been that first Christmas when Sam had admitted his feelings. Emma's children grew up and started families of their own. Thomas and Catherine celebrated 20 years of marriage. William married a woman he met at college, and Rose shocked everyone by becoming one of the best horse trainers in the state. Daniel became a successful veterinarian, traveling all over Wyoming and beyond to tend to animals. The ranch was now run by William and Thomas together, with input from Sam, who was officially retired but could not quite give up being involved. Priscilla had her garden, larger now than ever, and she still sewed, making quilts for each new grandchild and great-grandchild. On their 30th anniversary, Sam and Priscilla rode out to the marker again. It had become a tradition, this yearly pilgrimage to the place where their story began. 30 years, Priscilla marveled. How is that possible? It feels like yesterday and like forever all at once. Time moves differently when you are happy, Sam said. The days are long but the years are short. They dismounted and stood by the marker hand in hand. The wood was weathered now but still sturdy, Sam's carving still clear and readable. "You ever wonder what would have happened if you had not come along that day?" Priscilla asked. "If the storm had been too bad or you had taken a different road?" "I try not to," Sam admitted. "It is too terrible to contemplate. You and the children would have died and I would have lived out my life alone, never knowing what I was missing." "But you did come," Priscilla said. "You found us. You saved us." "We saved each other," Sam said, echoing Rose's words from years ago. "And we built something beautiful." They stood there for a long time, watching the sun move across the sky, remembering and being grateful. That night, surrounded by their family at the anniversary dinner, Priscilla stood to make her own toast. 30 years ago I was lost and terrified, certain I was going to die. But a cowboy came out of the snow and said the most important words I have ever heard. My home is yours tonight. Those words saved my life. But more than that, they changed my life. Sam gave me a home, not just for one night, but forever. He gave me love and family and a life beyond my wildest dreams. So here is to Sam, the best man I have ever known, and to 30 more years of loving him. Sam kissed her to thunderous applause from their family, and when they pulled apart, both had tears in their eyes. "I love you, Prissy Webster," Sam said. "I love you too, Sam, always and forever." The years rolled on, bringing changes as they always did. Sam and Priscilla moved into a smaller house on the ranch property, letting William and his family take over the main house. It was time, they both agreed, to let the next generation lead. They spent their days in peaceful contentment. Sam still rode every morning, checking on the ranch and the cattle. though he left the heavy work to younger men. Priscilla gardened and sewed and welcomed a constant stream of grandchildren and great-grandchildren who came to visit. On a summer evening in their 35th year of marriage, Sam and Priscilla sat on the porch of their small house, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. Their hands were clasped together, aged now, marked with spots and veins, but still strong. "Do you remember the first sunset we watched together?" Priscilla asked. "That first night after you brought us to the cabin." "I remember everything about those early days," Sam said. "You were so beautiful, even half frozen and terrified. I knew right then that you were going to change my life." "I was not thinking about beauty," Priscilla laughed. "I was just trying not to die. And now look at us, 35 years later, still watching sunsets together. And many more to come," Priscilla said firmly. "Many more," Sam agreed. They sat in comfortable silence as the stars came out, one by one, until the sky was filled with them. From the main house, they could hear the sounds of family, laughter, and voices carrying on the evening air. "We did good, didn't we?" Sam said softly. "With the kids, the ranch, our life." "We did better than good," Priscilla said. "We did wonderful. Look at our family, Sam. Look at what we created. Emma and Thomas are happy and successful. Our other children are thriving. We have grandchildren and great-grandchildren. The ranch is prosperous. We built something that will last long after we are gone." "It all started with you," Sam said. "You and those two brave children stranded in the snow. The best day of my life was finding you." "The second best was marrying you," Priscilla added. "And every day after that," Sam finished. They laughed together, the easy laughter of people who knew each other completely, who had built a life together from nothing but hope and love and hard work. As they finally went inside, Priscilla paused to look back at the ranch, at the lights glowing in the main house, at the land stretching out in all directions. This was home. This was family. This was love. And it had all started with a broken wagon, a terrible storm, and a cowboy who had offered his home for one night and ended up offering his heart for a lifetime. Years continued to pass, slower now, each one more precious than the last. Sam and Priscilla celebrated their 40th anniversary surrounded by more than 50 family members, spanning 4 generations. The love they had created had multiplied and spread, touching everyone who knew them. They still rode out to the marker every year, though the rides were shorter now, and Sam had to help Priscilla up into the saddle. But the tradition mattered, and they kept it faithfully. On their 42nd anniversary, Priscilla woke to find Sam still sleeping beside her, his breathing deep and even. She watched him in the early morning light, this man who had been her partner and her love for more than 4 decades. His hair was white now, his face deeply lined, but to her he was still the handsome cowboy who had saved her life. Sam's eyes opened, and he smiled when he saw her watching him. "Good morning, beautiful. Good morning, my love." They had breakfast together, just the two of them, in their cozy kitchen. Then they walked slowly around the ranch, greeting horses and cattle, checking on the garden that Priscilla still tended with help from her grandchildren. That evening, the whole family gathered for dinner. Emma was there with her husband, now gray-haired themselves, and their children and grandchildren. Thomas and Catherine, still devoted to each other after all these years, brought their grown children and grandchildren. William came with his wife and family. Rose arrived with her husband and children. Daniel showed up with stories of his latest adventures treating animals across 3 states. The table was long and crowded, filled with food and love and laughter. Sam looked around at all these faces, all these people who existed because he had found a broken wagon in the snow 42 years ago and felt overwhelming gratitude. After dinner, Sam stood, which quieted the crowd. "I want to say something," he began, his voice still strong despite his age. 42 years ago, I was a lonely man who had given up on happiness. Then a storm came, and in that storm I found the greatest treasure of my life. I found Prissy and Emma and Thomas. I found family. I found love. I found purpose. Everything good in my life came from that one moment of deciding to help someone in need. So I want you all to remember that. Be kind. Help people. You never know when you might find your whole life in the process. "Hear, hear," came the chorus of agreement. Priscilla stood and took Sam's hand. "And I want to say that loving Sam Webster has been the greatest joy of my life. He gave me a home when I had nothing. He loved my children as his own. He stood by me through every hardship and celebrated every joy. I am the luckiest woman who ever lived." They kissed to applause and cheers, and then the party continued late into the night, just as it had for so many years. Later, lying in bed, Sam pulled Priscilla close. "I meant what I said. You are the greatest treasure of my life." "And you are mine," Priscilla whispered back. "Thank you for finding me, Sam. Thank you for bringing me home." "Thank you for staying," Sam said. "Thank you for loving me." They fell asleep in each other's arms, just as they had for 42 years, and Priscilla thought there could be no greater happiness than this, growing old with the man you loved, surrounded by the family you built together. The seasons turned. Spring became summer, summer became fall, fall became winter. And through it all, Sam and Priscilla remained partners, best friends, lovers, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. They were the heart of the Webster family, the foundation upon which everything else was built. On a cold December day, almost 43 years to the day after Sam had found Priscilla in the snow, they rode out to the marker one last time. It took longer now. Sam moved slowly and Priscilla needed help mounting her horse, but they made it, just as they always had. Standing by the marker, looking at the words Sam had carved so long ago, Priscilla felt tears on her cheeks. "We had a good life, didn't we, Sam?" "The best life," Sam agreed, his arm around her. "I would not change a single moment. Not even the hard parts, especially not the hard parts." They made the good parts sweeter. They stood there for a long time, remembering and being grateful. Then, as the sun began to set, they rode back to the ranch, to their little house, to their family. That night, the whole family gathered again, though this time was unplanned. William had come to check on his parents and found them both peacefully asleep in their chairs by the fire, hands clasped together. They had passed quietly together, which was fitting. They had lived together, loved together, built a life together. Of course they would leave together too. The funeral was attended by hundreds of people. Sam and Priscilla Webster had touched so many lives, had built not just a ranch but a legacy of love and kindness. Emma and Thomas spoke, sharing memories of the mother who had chosen them, the father who had saved them all. William, Rose, and Daniel shared stories of growing up in a house filled with love. Grandchildren and great-grandchildren added their own remembrances. And at the end, the whole family rode out to the marker, to the place where it all began. They stood in a circle around it, 4 generations of Websters, and Emma read the inscription aloud. "Here in the snow and darkness, love found a way." "Love always finds a way," Emma said, her voice strong despite her tears. "That is what they taught us. No matter how dark things seem, no matter how lost you feel, love will find a way. Their love saved them, and their love created all of us. We are their legacy, and we will carry it forward." Thomas added a new inscription to the marker beneath the original. Samuel and Priscilla Webster. 1843–1886. Together they built a life, a family, and a love that will never die. The family stood together as the sun set, remembering and celebrating the 2 people who had started it all. And though Sam and Priscilla were gone, their love lived on in every child, grandchild, and great-grandchild. It lived on in the ranch they had built, in the traditions they had started, in the values they had instilled. Their story had begun with a broken wagon and a terrible storm, with desperation and fear. But it had transformed into something beautiful, a love story for the ages. Sam had offered his home for one night, but Priscilla had given him her heart forever. And together, they had created something that would last long after they were gone. Love had found a way, just as the marker said. Through snow and hardship, through joy and sorrow, through 43 years of life together. Love had found a way, and it always would. The Webster Ranch continued to thrive, generation after generation, a testament to the love of two people who had found each other in the snow. And every year on that December day, the family would gather at the marker to remember, to celebrate, and to be grateful for the cowboy who had said, "My home is yours tonight," and the woman who had been brave enough to say yes. Their love story became legend, passed down through the years, inspiring everyone who heard it. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, hope exists. That kindness matters. That love, true love, can transform everything. And so the story of Sam and Priscilla Webster lived on, a beacon of hope and love for all who came after. A testament to the power of choosing kindness, of opening your heart, of believing in second chances. They had found each other in a storm, and they had created sunshine that lasted for generations. The end.